friends, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to bring you another Copic coloring video, and this one is again a specific critter colored in different ways. So I've done a few of these videos in the past. So I started out with gorillas to illustrate the 4 different gray families, and that evolved into elephants, and then red foxes. And then my previous video was 6 to a dozen ways to color cats, just because they come in so many different patterns and colors and varieties. So we did a whole bunch of those. And I thought since we did cats last time, it would only be fair to do dogs this time. So I'm going to be using the Lawn Fawn Furry and Bright stamp set using this little pup here. And we are again going to do 6 to a dozen ways. So I will take you through 6 different ways to color dogs on screen, and then I'll do 6 additional off screen just to keep the video short and sweet, or as much as possible. But I just wanted to give you guys lots of ideas. So I'm going to start with a very simple, basic little dog using E50, E51, and E53 for the body. Starting with that E53, I like to color darkest to lightest in almost all cases. So I'm going to blend that out with my mid-tone, which is going to be the E51. And then I'll come in with the E50. And I'm just going to fill in this little pup. And I'm going to feather that down towards his belly, so his belly will be the lightest spot. I am going to do a second layer there because I wanted to increase that saturation, but I don't want to go darker. I just want to make the colors more vivid. So I'm just doing a second layer real quick, and then I'm going to darken up the ears just to give him a little bit of contrast. So I'm going to bring in E55, E57, and E59 for those. So I'll place that E59 toward the back edge of those ears and then blend that out with the E57 and then use the E55 for a bit of highlight. And again, I will do a second layer on those just to make sure that everything is nicely blended. And then I will take a black pen, one that doesn't smear easily, and I will write down the colors that I used underneath that little pup so that you can read them hopefully clearly. And then I'm going to move on to my second little dog, and this one I'm going to do even more simply. I'm going to use YR20, YR21, and YR23, so I can do something like a yellow lab or a golden retriever. It's quite a bit trickier to do a video like this for dogs than it was for cats, because cats are generally all about the same size and shape. There are of course exceptions to that, but in general, they're about the same size and shape, so it's really just about the coloring and details, whereas dogs come in so many different shapes and sizes and varieties, it's very difficult to do a general video like this one. But the one time in a dog's life where many of them do look similar is when they are puppies. And so this is more of like a puppy look for most of these dogs, though not necessarily all. So I blended out with all of those shades, the YR23 first, then the YR21. I used the YR20 for the highlight, and I switched to putting the shading at the bottom of the ear just to give you an idea of how that looks. And then I used just a touch of E000 in the areas that I wanted to be super light, like the lower part of the face and the belly. I also did a second layer over that entire little pup, and I did a third layer on his ears because I just wanted those to be a bit more blended. And then I'll go ahead and write down the marker shades that I used for this pup right underneath him as well. It's a bit tricky for me to write straight up and down in this way, being left-handed. I normally need to turn my paper, but anyway, I did my best. And I'm moving on to my third little pup, and for this one I'm starting with just a base layer in the shadowed areas of E40, And then I'm going to add some more details to that by bringing in some cool grays. I'm going to use C0, C1, C3, and C5. So I'm coming in now with the C5, and I'm going to color both ears. I'll blend that out with the C3 and then the C1. For a lot of these dogs, I didn't necessarily plan out what I was going to do ahead of time. There was one specific dog that I had a request for on my channel not that long ago. Somebody asked if I could color a black dachshund, and so I will be including that in this video. But other than that, I was kind of just playing with different colors and patterns. So for this little one, I gave him a spot around his eye, and then a large patch on his back, and then some smaller ones on his hind legs and his front legs as well. So I just did those starting with the C5, blended out with the C3, and then used the C1. I also pulled out the C0 in case I was going to need it to help smooth some of the transition areas from the gray to the white, but I ended up not using it at all, so you'll see me take that away before I write my marker colors down. And pretty much all of these color palettes and patterns can be switched around. So this little dog could be using the colors that I used on the first little dog instead, just in this type of patterning. You can mix and match. You can bring in whatever you'd like and, you know, play around and see what results you end up with and just have fun with it. So the next dog that I'm going to do is going to be the little black and tan dachshund, or dachshund, however you'd like to say it. And I'm going to start with some toner grays. I just wanted to mix it up and not use the same grays on every dog, so I just picked the toners at random. I do like them because they're a bit warmer, and so I think they're going to blend nicely with the brown tones that I'm going to bring in. So I'm using T5, T7, and T9. If this is a bit dark for you, you could take away the T9 and bring in the T3 instead. But since I am going to be blending into brown, I wanted to go with the darker shades. I was afraid that the gray might make the brown look a bit muddy. So the darker grays are just going to be a bit more prominent and hopefully eliminate that. So doing a two-tone dachshund is pretty easy actually. You just want to divide the dog in about half and do the top part in the black. Normally for this little variety, dachshunds come in different varieties, so you can also play with it and create different color combinations. But for the tan parts, I'm going to use E31, E33, and E35. And again, I just started darkest to lightest, so that E35 went up against the T5 right next to that. And then I'm blending toward the belly with the E33 and then the E31. And if you wanted to, you could actually bring the black area a little bit lower on the face to cover the eye, but I would leave a small area white above the eye and then go back and color that in with the copper shades. So a lot of dachshunds have a bit of a copper tone right on the eyebrow area, and it looks really cute. So I would plan ahead though if you want to do that and leave a space for that white, because it would be really hard to add that in over top of the black. I don't think it would show up very well at all. So I'm going to write down the shades that I used for this guy, and then we'll move on to number 5. And number 5 is going to be a mix between our top left pup and our top right pup. So he'll be a lighter brown colored dog with darker ears and patches. So I just wanted to show you how you can kind of combine the different patterning and create something new. So I didn't want to use the same shades, so I'm using E40s for this one. E41, E42, and E43 are going to be the main colors of the body. And I also made sure to leave the muzzle white, so I purposely kind of drew a line there to let that be white rather than just letting it fade as I have on some of the other pups. So I'm going to leave the belly white as well. And then I'm going to do my second layer for this area of the dog because it's easier to blend this now without the other patches being in the way than it would be to try to do it later and go around them and not kind of drag the lighter colors through the darker colors. So for the darker colors, I'm just going to bring in E44 and E47 and we'll start to do the patches. So the E47 is going to be first. I'm going to put a patch on the top of the head. I'm going to put one on the forelegs, one on the back, and then one on his little bottom. I'll blend out that E47 with the E44. And then I'll go in with the E43 to lighten that up a bit. So the E43 was my darkest for the main part of the body, and now it's become my lightest for the patches, and that's just going to help it kind of blend in to the fur tone. I wanted the ears to be even darker to give him another layer of contrast, so I brought in the E49 for those. I'm going to blend out with the E47 and fill in with the E44 for the highlight down at the bottom. I prefer to put my shadows on my dog's ears at the top, but like I showed you with the golden pup, you can switch it and do at the bottom if you like that better. I felt like I just needed a little bit of shading in the white areas, so I brought in the E40 for that, just a real quick little layer. And then I'll write down all of the colors I used for that pup. So this is the last pup that I'm going to show how to color on screen, but then I will bring in the second sheet of 6 more dogs to talk you through at the end. But the last one is definitely the most complicated, but I had to include it because this is my dog, Gemma. She is an Australian Shepherd, a blue merle Australian Shepherd specifically. Australian Shepherds also come in different varieties and color patterns, just like dachshunds and many other dogs. And so I'm coloring this one to look like my dog when she was a little puppy. So blue merle Australian Shepherds have a lot of different colors and patterns on them, and I am starting with her coppery tones. I used E31, E33, and E35 for those, and I did accidentally swap out the order of the caps there, but I didn't realize it. So the E31 was the lightest, started with the E35, blended out with the E33, and then used the E31, and then I moved on to her gray patches, and I used toner grays for those, T0, T1, and T3. I'm also making sure to leave some white areas. Her belly is white, her feet are white, and also the area around her muzzle and the up to her forehead is white. And then I brought in T5 and T7 to start to do her little black streaks that she's got mixed into the gray. So I'm just doing like little squiggles and dots in kind of triangular patterns. She's got a couple larger patches on her back and then smaller ones on the top of her head and her ears. So I started with the T7 for those, and then I'm blending out with the T5, just kind of going around the edges of those and softening them a bit into her fur tone. And I will also bring in the T3 and continue to soften those up and just help them feel a bit more integrated into her coat. And then she's got areas of the gray that are a little bit darker than some of the others. So I'm going to go in with the T1 and just kind of pull a little bit of that gray down towards the belly area and on the ears as well, on the back of the legs. And then I use the T0 to just add a touch of shading to the white part of her muzzle, and wrote down the colors that I used for this one, and I accidentally wrote them in the wrong order because I'd placed them in the wrong order. So I had to go and grab some whiteout and fix that so that I could write back over it with the correct number so that I could have them in order for future reference. I do like to keep these in my page protector that holds my Copic color chart and my hex chart so that I have them for reference whenever I need them. If I want to color a dog card, I kind of take a look at them and see what colors I might want to use and how I can do it a bit differently. So I do want to give these dogs some rosy cheeks because I do that for all of my critters. So for the lighter colored ones, I'm using R20 blended out with R11. And for the darker colored ones, I'm using R22 blended out with R20. And I did go back and do a second layer on some of them because I just wanted it to be a bit more vibrant. So that's going to finish off this sheet. So I'll go ahead and bring in the one that I colored off screen. So you'll see that a lot of these are very similar to the patterns that I did on the first one, just with some slight tweaks with different color palettes or doing 2 tones of patches, like 2 shades of brown on the white. I've also done one that has a dark muzzle and only 1 dark ear and then left the other ear light. I did a beagle instead of a dachshund just by changing up the colors and the shape of the patch on the back, making it more rounded and leaving a bit of white on the muzzle and belly. You can also add some smaller little dots inside the patches to give them some more texture and interest, as I did on the 5th little dog. And then the last one is just a mainly black dog with a white muzzle and belly and feet and a little bit of dot detail to add some extra interest as well. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. I hope that it inspired you to try some different colors and patterns for the dogs that you'll use on your own cards. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know if you liked this type of video, and also let me know what kind of critter I should color next in different ways. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell if you'd like to be alerted when I post new videos. All of the products I use will be linked down below in the description bar. And I'd love for you to continue watching by clicking on either of the videos on screen right now. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I hope you had a good one, and I'll see you soon in another video. Bye-bye!